When Ling Han looked at the corpse, a speculation appeared in his heart. Years ago, Jiang Yuifeng and so many other elite warriors of Heaven Tier were ganging up on this ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier, and the final result should be that neither side won and everyone died. However, the ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier was too powerful. Even after his death, he managed to create a forbidden zone that no one could enter. After 10,000 years, even the martial intent of a Shattering Void Tier martial artist would weaken. And in a sudden earthquake that revealed the underground river, various spiritual tools floated out on the waters of this underground river and finally managed to tempt him to this place. Ling Han did not know who this ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier had been when he was alive, but he fully trusted his disciple. Since Jiang Yuifeng took part in this battle royale, then this ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier must have committed heinous crimes. If he wanted to leave this place, it was simple, because the source of all the restrictions in this place was the martial intent of this ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier. Then as long as he managed to erase this person's martial intent, then everything in this place would naturally return to how it used to be. For others, erasing the martial intent of an ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier was absolutely impossible. However, for Ling Han, this would only be a slight effort on his part. After all, the source of the martial intent was this skeletal corpse, and now that this skeleton was about to collapse, he would be able to turn it completely into dust as long as he exerted a bit of effort. Under normal conditions, Ling Han would naturally not do something like destroying someone else's remains, but this guy was very possibly a man that was wicked beyond redemption. Ling Han did not hesitate for a moment and delivered a single kick. Pah! The skeleton that was already fractured in many places in the first place instantly collapsed, and all the golden characters carved on it transformed into an invisible energy that surged out in all directions. Changes were immediately obvious. At first, Ling Han was not able to see anything outside the aura field, but now that the martial intent of the Shattering Void Tier warrior was completely gone, the aura field had also vanished without a trace. Thus, his sight was no longer hampered in any way. Ling Han! Liu Yutong and Li Si-chan cried out in surprise at the same time. Ling Han's eyes cast a look around, yet found that only the two of them were there. There was no sign of any of the others. He was stunned at first, but then swiftly understood. The godly medicine had ran out earlier on, and so must have attracted a lot of people to chase after it. Thus, there was naturally no one else here. I've made you wait. He nodded at the two girls. The two girls gave a reserved smile in response. In truth, the two of them had been very worried about him before, but they did not have such thick skin to so openly display their anxiety. Let's go! The three of them went back the way they came. Yet they had only walked for a short while before feeling a very powerful aura press down on them. Li Zhangye and the other old monsters had appeared. The remains of the ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier had been destroyed, so the light of God had also disappeared. There was nothing left to deny these old monsters entry. These old monsters swiftly passed them by. No matter how highly they thought of Ling Han, they would never think that the disappearance of the light of God had anything to do with this young man. They all had their attention focused on that stalk of godly medicine, and so of course would not have the time to waste on chit-chat with Ling Han. Shoot, their figures soared and were soon very far away. Godly medicine. They had no hope of getting their hands on it, or so Ling Han thought. That godly medicine was level 10, and though it was not very powerful by itself, the speed at which it could escape was incredible. Even if he still had the cultivation level of his last life, he would have to expend a lot of effort to capture it. The reason why he had been able to succeed in catching hold of it just now had been because there was still the aura field of the ultimate warrior of Shattering Void Tier, pressing down on it, slowing it down. Additionally, that stalk of godly medicine had also been careless, and had not expected there would be anyone who might be able to enter the aura field. There was no longer any value left in this place, so Ling Han chose to leave without any hesitation. However, there were still a few questions that were left unanswered in his heart. Why had there suddenly appeared an ultimate warrior of shattering void tier 10,000 years ago? Why had so many heaven tier elites suddenly appeared? And what unforgivable crime had this shattering void tier martial artist committed that caused him to be ganged up on by so many heaven tier martial artists, which eventually led to their mutual demise? No matter how hard he thought, he could find no answer to any of these questions. Perhaps this would remain an unanswered mystery forever. Ling Han regained his composure. This time, he had managed to gain 3 treasures: a spatial ring, 3 roots of the godly medicine, and a strange fire. The spatial ring was all right, but the latter 2 treasures were items that even he, in last life, would covet furiously. What a colossal reward! On their way out, they naturally saw a lot of the others searching all around for the godly medicine. Ling Han did not stop at any moment, of course. He decided to return once they had made their way out of the underground river. Shoo! The 3 of them had just stepped onto the river bank, and they immediately saw that stalk of godly medicine run past them. It passed them by swiftly and instantly disappeared into the distance. Shoo! 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 Li Zhangye and the other old monsters soon appeared, hot on its heels. All of them looked extremely furious. Obviously, they had been played by that stalk of godly medicine. Ling Han could not help but smile. Now that the light of God in this place had disappeared, that stalk of godly medicine had lost this natural protection. So, it would of course not be staying in this place anymore. Most probably, it would never return here again. However, his guess was that this stalk of godly medicine wouldn't leave Rain Country either. When he had once again reached Heaven Tier, he could come back here to look around. Who knows, he might be able to obtain this stalk of godly medicine. After the light of God had disappeared, the level 9 spiritual tools all left the underground space at a quicker rate. There was no way to obtain those that still retained their spirit, and there was not much value in getting those without spirit. Ling Han did not want to continue staying here, so after asking the 2 girls for their opinion, the 3 of them returned to the Imperial City together. When Wu Songlin saw that Ling Han had returned so quickly, he could not help feeling very surprised. But at the same time, he also breathed out a sigh in relief, because for an old man like him, taking care of the 2 little girls was indeed a headache-inducing task. Who knew was too wild, so he could not hand her over to be taken care of by servants. The only option left was for him to take care of her, and babysitting her for a mere few days was enough torment to cause him to lose a few pounds of weight. Ling! Ling! When Hu Nu spotted Ling Han, she instantly pounced on him and hung herself from Ling Han's shoulders, her little face bearing an overjoyed grin. Ling Han could not help but laugh. It was really rare to hear this little girl not say meat. Looks like she had indeed missed him. However, he had barely completed this thought before hearing Hu Nu exclaim, "Meat! Meat! Meat!" Fine, the deep-set character of a glutton was difficult to change. "Let's go eat meat!" He picked Hu Nu up, while his other hand held on to Ling Zixuan and left with the 2 little girls in tow. Liu Yutong naturally followed him, but Li Shichan could not be so willful. She could only reluctantly stay behind to assist Wu Songlin, because Wu Songlin had just recently achieved a new level of comprehension and intended to concoct a type of black-grade high-level alchemical pill. If things went smoothly, he would attempt to concoct an earth-grade alchemical pill. The ingredients necessary for the concoction of an earth-grade alchemical pill were too expensive. Every time the furnace exploded, it meant a colossal waste of resources. Even a high-ranking person like Wu Songlin dared not begin the concoction process so easily. He needed to have a certain level of confidence that the furnace would not explode. This was also one of the reasons why there was no Earth-grade alchemist in Rain Country. Due to there not being enough chances to try concocting Earth-grade alchemical pills, how could it be possible that anyone would succeed in becoming an Earth-grade alchemist? Of course, this was also related to the environment in Rain Country, where Earth-grade ingredients were unbelievably expensive. However, in bigger places, although Earth-grade ingredients were still very valuable, their value was not to the extent in Rain Country. Heaven-grade ingredients were the really priceless ingredients there. Ling Han carried Hu Nu while Liu Yutong held on to Ling Zixuan's hand. The four of them went and had a great feast at a restaurant. It was all on the tab of the third imperial prince anyways, so money was no issue. After they had their fill, Liu Yutong and Ling Zixuan left. They had their own accommodations. Moreover, Ling Zixuan also needed to cultivate, so how could she keep clinging on to Ling Han? After Ling Han had returned to his own courtyard, he took out a root of the godly medicine and prepared to refine it.